Johnny Carson smiled for America every night. Calm voice, sharp jokes, friendly face. But when the lights went off, something changed.
Carson lives like his peers among the entertainment elite in Bel Air, California. Though his 2-acre spread could almost be described as modest compared to the more lavish establishments that dot the neighborhood.
For 30 years, the biggest stars in Hollywood sat across from Johnny Carson. Actors, singers, legends of the golden age. To the audience, they looked charming, kind, even lovable. But behind the curtain, Johnny was watching closely, and he was judging quietly. Few people know this, but Carson kept a private list. Not great guests, of terrible ones. People who scared the staff. People who abused power. People who acted sweet on camera and cruel the moment no one was watching. Johnny rarely raised his voice. He didn't expose them publicly.
Well, this is it. Johnny Carson's last night as host of The Tonight Show.
Steve Overton says the show was taped at 8:30 Eastern Time.
He didn't argue on air. He simply remembered, and some names never left his mind. Years later, fragments of those stories began to surface. Whispered warnings, backstage incidents, moments so disturbing that even Johnny Carson, the most unshakable host on television, was left cold. These weren't just divas or difficult personalities. According to those closest to him, some were genuinely dark, protected by fame, enabled by silence. Tonight, we're pulling back that curtain. Stay with us, because once you hear who made Johnny Carson's private blacklist, you may never see Hollywood's golden age the same way again. Joan Crawford, the glamour that hid ice. To the television audience, Joan Crawford appeared as the very definition of old Hollywood royalty. She was elegant, controlled, and mesmerizing, carrying herself with the confidence of someone who believed the spotlight belonged to her. When she arrived on The Tonight Show in 1970, everything about her entrance was carefully calculated.
And this next lady, I have been a fan of for many, many years, like all of you have. And I don't know what kind of an introduction you give somebody of her stature, other than just mentioning her name, Miss Joan Crawford.
Her posture was perfect, her smile practiced, and her voice smooth. Viewers at home saw a legendary actress reclaiming her throne. But behind the curtains, the illusion was shattered almost immediately. Backstage, staff members described Crawford as rigid and emotionally distant. She spoke little, and when she did, it was rarely kind. Every detail of the studio had to meet her strict demands. The lighting was adjusted again and again until it hit her face exactly as she wanted. Chairs were repositioned by inches. Even the temperature of the room became an issue. Crew members were ordered to adjust it repeatedly, no matter how uncomfortable it made others. Nothing was ever good enough. Perfection was expected, and fear enforced it. One incident became infamous among The Tonight Show staff. A young production assistant, nervous and new, accidentally entered Crawford's dressing area while delivering notes. The mistake was small and innocent. Crawford's reaction was not. She erupted into a verbal assault so sharp and cruel that the room fell silent. Her words were cutting, personal, and relentless. The assistant stood frozen, then fled the room in tears. Seasoned crew members, people who had worked with countless difficult stars, were stunned by the intensity of her rage. Johnny Carson witnessed the aftermath. He was known for his dry humor, but this moment left him genuinely unsettled. Turning quietly to his producer, he muttered, "I've interviewed corpses with more personality." It was not just an insult, it was an observation. Crawford's coldness felt deliberate, almost rehearsed, as if empathy had been removed entirely. Years later, when Christina Crawford's memoir exposed the abuse behind closed doors, Carson showed no surprise. He simply nodded. He had seen it already. The same icy control. The same need for dominance. To Johnny Carson, Joan Crawford became the first clear example of a Hollywood truth he would learn again and again. Sometimes, the brightest glamour hides something deeply unsettling beneath the surface. Frank Sinatra, the charm that could terrify on television. Frank Sinatra seemed the perfect embodiment of charm. Blue eyes laughed effortlessly with Johnny Carson, shared stories, and occasionally performed.
And I get the chills.
You'll excuse us once you
Certainly, certainly.
Marco Mangananzo was hurt.
Leaving viewers with the impression of a warm, easygoing friendship. To the audience, it looked like two legends connecting naturally, creating light-hearted entertainment. Behind the scenes, however, the reality was starkly different. Sinatra's charisma often vanished, replaced by an aura that could unsettle even the most experienced crew. He never appeared alone. His entourage, sometimes 8 or more men, moved like a protective shield, scanning the studio with sharp, watchful eyes. Even minor mistakes could provoke tension. One floor manager, a Korean War veteran, learned this the hard way. While performing a routine task, he reminded Sinatra of the 3-minute cue for his segment. Sinatra, visibly angered, grabbed the man by his tie and issued a harsh warning. The veteran, shaken and speechless, left the studio stunned. Carson, watching from the control room, considered canceling the segment entirely, realizing how volatile Sinatra could be off-camera. Yet, despite this intimidation, Sinatra's public persona remained flawless. On camera, he entertained with wit and charm, giving no hint of the pressure he imposed behind the scenes. Johnny Carson saw the truth. Sinatra used power as a tool to manipulate, control, and intimidate. Talent and fame could not excuse these actions. Respect for his artistry conflicted with a quiet disgust for his behavior. Carson rarely restricted guests, even difficult ones, but Sinatra's repeated crossing of boundaries left him no choice. Limiting appearances became necessary, a rare move reflecting the seriousness of the situation. Behind the applause, the laughter, and the smooth performances, Sinatra had revealed the darker side of celebrity influence. For Johnny, it was a powerful lesson. Even the most adored stars could conceal a willingness to harm those who stood in their way. Orson Welles, genius or ego unleashed. Orson Welles was the very definition of cinematic genius. His name alone carried immense weight, promising unforgettable television whenever he appeared on The Tonight Show. On camera, Welles mesmerized audiences with his deep...
My first guest, I consider a good friend. He's been with us several times in the past few months, and a most original and creative talent in our business. Would you welcome Mr. Orson Welles?
Commanding voice, magnetic presence, and stories that seemed to span lifetimes. Viewers at home were enthralled, thinking they were witnessing a glimpse of a man who had transformed the world of film. Yet backstage, the experience was entirely different, one that tested the patience of even the most seasoned Tonight Show crew. Preparation with Welles was nearly impossible. Johnny Carson's team meticulously drafted questions, aiming for smooth, engaging segments that fit the show's format. Welles, however, often dismissed these efforts outright, calling the questions pedestrian or beneath his intellect. Staff remembered him crossing out entire pages of prepared prompts, returning them blank, leaving Carson with nothing to guide the conversation. Once the cameras rolled, timing became another battle. A segment planned for 7 minutes could stretch into 25, as Welles wove endless monologues, ignoring the cues meant to signal the wrap-up. Welles's control extended beyond words. He treated the studio as his personal domain, issuing directions to camera operators, adjusting lighting, and even dictating where crew members should stand. The usual hierarchy of the show seemed irrelevant to him. Everything existed to serve his performance. For Carson, a host famed for his calm demeanor, this presented a rare challenge. He would mutter quietly, "Genius doesn't excuse everything," a mixture of admiration and exasperation evident in his voice. Mickey Rooney, the smile that crossed the line. To the public, Mickey Rooney was a symbol of classic Hollywood charm. He was the energetic child star who grew up in front of the camera, a performer people trusted and loved. When his name appeared on The Tonight Show schedule, viewers expected laughs, nostalgia, and harmless stories from Hollywood's golden age.
My first guest, you all know, I have known Mickey Rooney for 20 minutes. I first met Mickey in the early 1950s, and he is one of the major talents. He is more versatile, he has more range as an actor than almost anyone that I know.
What they never saw was the tension that quietly spread backstage the moment Rooney arrived. Among the Tonight Show staff, Rooney's visits were uncomfortable and often dreaded. Young female assistants, many new to the industry, knew his reputation well. Simple tasks like bringing water or passing notes became moments of anxiety. Rooney had a habit of touching hands for too long, leaning in too close, and making personal comments that crossed professional boundaries. To him, it seemed playful. To those on the receiving end, it felt invasive and unsettling. Several staff members later recalled that Rooney often appeared unfocused during tapings. His speech would drift, stories would lose direction, and his energy felt unpredictable. Some believed alcohol played a role, as he occasionally showed signs of being intoxicated. During one appearance, a casual story began turning inappropriate, forcing Johnny Carson to step in and redirect the conversation before it went too far. The audience laughed, unaware of what had just been avoided. Johnny. Carson was known for his calm control. He rarely showed discomfort on camera. But off camera, Rooney's behavior bothered him deeply. What troubled Johnny most was not just the actions themselves, but the lack of awareness behind them. Rooney seemed confused when corrected, as if he truly did not understand why his behavior was wrong. After one particularly awkward taping, Carson did something unusual. He personally apologized to a young guest who had been made uncomfortable by Rooney's remarks. Staff members later said they had never seen Johnny so embarrassed by a guest's conduct. He made it clear that this kind of behavior did not reflect the standards of his show. From that point on, Rooney's appearances became more controlled and less frequent. Carson did not publicly criticize him, but privately, a line had been crossed. To Johnny, Mickey Rooney became a painful reminder that fame and nostalgia could not excuse behavior that made others feel unsafe. Behind the smile America remembered was a man stuck in the past, unaware that the rules had changed and unwilling to learn them. Jerry Lewis, the comedy mask that hid contempt to the public, Jerry Lewis was a comedy icon. Loud, energetic, and unforgettable. He made people laugh for decades and was praised as a creative genius. On television, he appeared playful and emotional, often speaking about kindness and charity. But behind the scenes of The Tonight Show, a very different version of Jerry Lewis emerged, one that deeply disturbed Johnny Carson.
Jerry Lewis has been entertaining audiences all over the world since he was a little teeny boy. And he's still a little teeny boy. He's a comedian, actor, director, and he's been awarded, I'm sure as most of you know, two of France's most prestigious awards.
Unlike some difficult guests who caused trouble quietly, Lewis created tension openly. He treated The Tonight Show like it belonged to him. During interviews, he regularly talked over Carson, ignored questions, and redirected conversations toward himself. Crew members noticed that Lewis did not respect the format of the show or the people running it. He behaved as if rules did not apply to him. What bothered Carson even more was how Lewis treated the staff. Assistants and technicians were often addressed not by name, but by dismissive labels like "you" or "camera guy." Several staff members recalled Lewis snapping at them over small issues, speaking down to people who were simply doing their jobs. One incident became especially well known among the crew. During a rehearsal, a camera operator quietly coughed. Lewis stopped everything and exploded in anger, accusing the man of being unprofessional. The room went silent. The operator was humiliated for something he couldn't control. Johnny Carson hated this kind of behavior. He believed respect toward staff showed real character. Lewis's actions crossed a line. There was also a personal boundary violation Carson never forgot. During one appearance, Lewis reached out and adjusted Carson's tie without permission. It seemed small, but to Johnny, it was a power move. Carson disliked being touched and saw it as a sign of disrespect. Lewis knew this and did it anyway. The contrast between Lewis's public image and private behavior made Carson uneasy. Here was a man praised for helping children and spreading joy, yet treating adults around him with cruelty and arrogance. According to people close to Carson, this hypocrisy bothered him deeply. After Lewis's final appearance on the show, Carson made a quiet decision. He did not make a public statement. He did not argue. He simply ensured Jerry Lewis would not be invited back. In a rare private comment, Carson reportedly said that in a city full of fake smiles, Lewis stood out for the wrong reasons. Mae West, power games behind the jokes. Mae West was a force of nature. The moment she stepped into the studio, she commanded attention not with aggression, but with an undeniable presence that made every eye turn toward her. On camera, her humor was playful, fearless, and razor-sharp. Audiences adored her for it, thinking they were witnessing harmless wit and charm. Her jokes landed effortlessly, her timing impeccable, and her smile disarming. But behind the scenes, the woman who could make an entire audience laugh also knew exactly how to manipulate the room and the people in it. Working with Mae West was unpredictable. She often rewrote her own lines at the last possible moment, leaving producers scrambling to adjust scripts, camera cues, and timing. Rehearsals, which the Tonight Show staff relied on to maintain smooth tapings, were sometimes ignored entirely. She would refuse to go over material with the team.
You look groovy, as they say.
Thank you.
Really do.
Thank you. Anniversary.
You got an anniversary coming up? Wednesday, is it not? I think Gary told me?
Yes. Our 8th.
Your 8th wedding anniversary?
Yes.
May I see that?
Don't touch.
Leaving Carson and the crew uncertain about which version of her performance would appear once the cameras rolled. Every taping felt like a gamble. Producers never knew whether Mae would stick to the planned jokes or improvise in ways that could throw off the show entirely. Her interactions with Johnny Carson were equally challenging. Mae frequently tested his authority, gently but deliberately probing limits to see how far she could push. If timing cues were missed or certain language had to be adjusted, she would respond with biting sarcasm, laughing off any correction as though it were beneath her. Crew members often said it felt less like confidence and more like a display of dominance, a subtle game to assert power over the entire set. Carson, usually in complete control of his show, recognized this immediately. He admired her talent and influence, but privately disliked how she wielded it. The humor that delighted the audience masked a backstage strategy of control, leaving staff in a state of careful navigation rather than collaboration. Mae West's presence created a unique tension. On one hand, she was entertaining, brilliant, and magnetic a guest who could elevate The Tonight Show with her legendary persona. On the other hand, every moment backstage required vigilance. crew members had to anticipate her whims, adapt to last-minute changes, and manage the undercurrent of power struggles that often played out silently. For Carson, this duality was both thrilling and exhausting. He understood that West's genius lay not only in her humor, but also in her ability to command respect and shape the environment around her. Despite the challenges, West's appearances were memorable. Her charisma on camera kept viewers engaged, often leaving them unaware of the subtle chaos she had created behind the scenes. For Johnny, she represented a rare case of a guest whose talent could not be questioned, but whose methods demanded patience, strategy, and constant attention. Mae West wasn't just performing, she was asserting control, testing boundaries, and reminding everyone in the studio that wit and influence could be as powerful off-camera as they were in front of the lens. Red Skelton, sweet image, dark temper. Red Skelton was a beloved figure, the kind of entertainer that families trusted implicitly. On screen, he radiated warmth and charm, a gentle presence whose humor felt effortless and endearing. Audiences laughed freely, comforted by the idea that behind the jokes and silly sketches was a kind-hearted man. Parents loved him, children adored him, and the Tonight Show staff initially shared that same expectation.
Anyway, let me tell you how I first met Red Skelton. I may have told this story on the air before, but when I first came to California in 1950, I was doing a show at KNXT, the local CBS channel on Vine Street.
Skelton would be polite, calm, and professional. But the reality behind the scenes was strikingly different. Crew members soon discovered that his public persona could vanish in an instant. Small mishaps, a misplaced prop, a microphone slightly off angle, a lighting adjustment that didn't meet his expectations could trigger sudden, intense outbursts. One moment, he might be joking and warm. The next, he would erupt in anger, leaving staff frozen in shock. There was no pattern, no warning. The shift in mood was abrupt and unpredictable. It wasn't the calculated behavior of a diva testing limits. It was raw emotion, uncontrolled and startling in its intensity. Unlike many other difficult guests, Red Skelton rarely offered apologies. Once the anger passed, he would retreat into silence, leaving an awkward tension hanging in the air. The crew didn't know whether to approach him, correct him, or pretend nothing had happened. The fear was subtle but pervasive. Everyone on set became hyper-aware of even minor mistakes, knowing they could provoke another explosive reaction. For Johnny Carson, who prided himself on maintaining control and smooth operations during tapings, this inconsistency was unnerving. He could manage egos, diva demands, or rehearsed chaos, but emotional unpredictability was different. It made him cautious, alert, and sometimes even hesitant, knowing that no rehearsal, no planning, could fully prepare the team for what Skelton might do next. Carson noticed something even more troubling: the stark contrast between the man audiences adored and the man staff experienced. On camera, Skelton inspired laughter and trust. Off camera, he inspired tension and apprehension. This duality wasn't malicious, but it was destabilizing. Carson understood that the challenge wasn't Skelton's talent, it was the emotional volatility that accompanied it. Each appearance required careful navigation, not just to protect the crew, but also to preserve the integrity of the show. Behind the warm smile and familiar laughs, there was a side of Red Skelton that few ever saw, a side that left even seasoned professionals wary and uncertain. Charlton Heston, oral authority turned judgment. Charlton Heston carried an undeniable presence, even off-camera. His stature and voice commanded attention, and his beliefs were strong, unwavering, and unapologetic, shaping every conversation he had. On The Tonight Show, what audiences saw was a composed, articulate man sharing insights about his career and causes. Behind the scenes, however, his moral certainty often overpowered the show's casual, light-hearted format.
Well, I didn't mind that so much, but as we were, the FBI fellas came and picked me up at the rehearsal down at the Amundsen, and as we were racing out to LAX, why, they handed me a bulletproof vest. And that made me a little nervous.
Rather than engaging in a relaxed dialogue with Johnny Carson, Heston frequently lectured, presenting his perspective as absolute truth. Crew members and producers reported that his words, while calm and deliberate, often felt like judgment. Opinions that didn't align with his worldview were dismissed outright, creating subtle but pervasive tension in the studio. Carson, known for his ability to balance personalities and maintain a collaborative environment, found Heston's rigidity challenging. While the actor's talent and professionalism were unquestionable, there was little room for open discussion or differing ideas. Staff members recalled moments when attempts to suggest changes or offer input were met with polite but firm resistance, leaving the crew feeling more controlled than respected. Unlike volatile or unpredictable guests, Heston's presence was consistent, but that consistency brought its own strain, a heavy, quiet pressure that made even simple tasks feel charged. Despite the tension, Carson never disrespected Heston's achievements. His admiration for the actor's work and influence remained intact. Yet, the warmth and ease that characterized The Tonight Show backstage were noticeably absent during Heston's visits. To Johnny, talent alone couldn't make up for the lack of personal connection. Behind the poised exterior, Heston's moral authority created an invisible barrier, one that kept camaraderie at bay and left staff navigating a carefully measured performance rather than genuine interaction. Elizabeth Taylor, chaos wrapped in stardom. Elizabeth Taylor's entrance into The Tonight Show studio was always magnetic, almost electrifying. Cameras captured her beauty, poise, and undeniable star power, but behind the scenes, her presence carried a weight that staff felt immediately.
I cannot think offhand of another international personality who has sparked the intense public fascination as my first guest, and it's a great pleasure to have her here. Would you welcome Miss Elizabeth Taylor?
From the moment she arrived, energy shifted. Assistants rushed to adjust lighting, makeup teams prepared for endless tweaks, and producers braced for unpredictability. Taylor's backstage behavior was a roller coaster. Scheduling changes at the last minute, spontaneous demands for props or staff adjustments, and sudden shifts in mood kept everyone on edge. No one could predict whether she would be warm and engaging or distant and dismissive on a given day. Some visits were memorable for generosity. She could be affectionate, playful, and attentive, leaving crew members feeling appreciated. On other days, she was aloof, snapping at staff for minor mistakes or delays. Carson, known for his patience and professionalism, often sympathized with Taylor's personal struggles, understanding that fame brought pressure and scrutiny unlike any other. Yet, even with that empathy, the disorder she left in her wake was frustrating. Delays mounted, tension grew, and the smooth flow of the show was constantly threatened by her unpredictability. Her celebrity status acted as a shield, allowing behaviors that might have been unacceptable to others to go unchecked. Staff learned to manage, anticipate, and sometimes avoid the chaos entirely. For Carson, Elizabeth Taylor was a vivid example of how stardom could amplify personal volatility. Talent, charm, and cinematic legend were undeniable, but behind the cameras, her brilliance came intertwined with disorder and emotional swings. Her presence reminded Johnny of a difficult truth. Fame could excuse behavior that would otherwise never be tolerated, leaving everyone else to navigate the turmoil left in its wake. Hollywood's golden age was dazzling, but behind the glitz, not everything was as it seemed. Johnny Carson, a master of observing character, saw the truth. For decades, He navigated fame, talent, and ego, discerning who was authentic and who hid darkness behind charm. His private opinions of these 9 guests, Joan Crawford, Frank Sinatra, Orson Welles, Mickey Rooney, Zsa Gabor, Shelley Winters, Jane Russell, and Jerry Lewis, reveal the complexities of celebrity life. Talent could coexist with cruelty, glamour could mask cruelty, and the world often remained unaware. Carson's stories remind us that public personas can be deceiving. He judged behavior toward the powerless assistants, crew, and staff to measure true character. Those insights, shared only with close friends, provide a rare window into the reality behind the spotlight. If these revelations shocked you, imagine what else Hollywood hides. Stay with us. We will continue to uncover untold stories, exposing the truth behind fame, power, and the secrets the cameras never captured.